in direct contrast to the governor of New York. And I mean, you just have to watch that man every day at his briefings. You can see the exhaustion that is clearly set in with that guy and potentially the PTSD. But so that contrasts markedly with his counterparts in other states. Now, tomorrow morning, Monday, here in America, you'll be able to go to a restaurant and dine in Georgia and Tennessee. You'll also be able to start going to the stores in one way or another, slowly ramping up over 5 days through Colorado, Minnesota, and Montana. And just like back home, as of tomorrow morning in Arkansas and Iowa, you can start having elective surgery. Now, all of that is too early, according to the Center for Disease Control. They said we can't consider in any state lifting these restrictions until you have 2 full weeks where the rate of infection goes down. Then you can open up a little bit and test and see. Then you can open up a little bit and test and see. Now, like I said, this battered governor of New York, he's doing exactly that. They figured out that, the infection rate from one person to one person is 1%. From one person to another to 2 people is more. They found that if they can keep the infection rate between 0.8%, so I infect less than one person, to 1.2% infection from me, then we can hang on to this. He said, otherwise, we're going to blow through this success like the wind through the weeds. So you really have to take into effect. Someone is besieged as the governor of New York with tens of thousands of deaths, and then other states where there's not been so much impact. And I think the politics and the money are having a bigger pull than they are in New York.
Yeah, and Michael, it appears President Trump has suggested an extraordinary and extremely dangerous treatment of his own that's causing uproar in the United States, and it has had its flow-on effects around the world too. So what can you tell us about that?
Oh, Peter, this is one for the ages. It's hard to know how to put this in context, but shortly after I stopped speaking to your show on Friday, President Trump took to the briefing room podium in the White House and he suggested a whole new treatment, coronavirus, right there off the cuff in front of the nation on live TV. Why don't you have a listen to the president's suggestion for treating the coronavirus?
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
So President Trump, off the top of his head, live, was wondering aloud, musing aloud, according to one of the senior health experts today, whether people should be injecting Dettol into their bodies, disinfectant, injecting it to just scour out your lungs. Now, what came off the top of the president's head at a national briefing lit a wildfire through the community. So much so that the makers of Lysol and Dettol in Australia had to quickly issue a statement saying, do not take our disinfectant internally under no circumstances. The president tried to walk this back the next day, saying, oh, he was just being sarcastic in response to a journalist's question. Well, there was no question, there was no journalist. As his own health expert said, this was the president's own musing. Calls to poison centres in the days that followed lit up. And then the day after, the president went into the briefing knowing that the journalists were just going to start asking about injecting disinfectant. So since the coronavirus briefings began, it was the shortest on record at 22 minutes, and the president ran away and refused to take questions. But, that's where we're at, that the commander-in-chief is floating out loud whether people should just start injecting Dettol.